Well, it's a race flag, yeah, race flag, yeah, race flag, yeah, race flag.
On a recent episode of the Radio Blast, Sports Illustrated Zac Ellis joined us to talk about the Heisman Trophy and who he thinks will take home this year's award. Is this Mariota's to lose right now?
Yes, at this point, I would say it's Marcus Mariota's to lose, just based on what he's done this year, the consistency, what he's done, who he's done it against in the Pac-12. He's got a team in Oregon that finally on the cusp of the national championship after a couple of years of success. And this year Mariota's kind of shown that he could handle the defensive fronts against like the Michigan States and the Stanfords that have kind of plagued him in the past. And I think this weekend's going to be tough for him. With Arizona, it's a good team. Obviously, Arizona beat Oregon earlier this year, but Oregon's offensive line's a little healthier. That was a big issue at the time, and I think being able to exact that revenge will really help him in this race. I think he's the best player in the country. He's obviously, dual threat quarterbacks have had success in this recent era of Heisman winners. It's difficult to compare players to different positions, and that's what's kind of intriguing about this current race is that really the top three contenders are Marcus Mariota, and then you've got Melvin Gordon and Amari Cooper, who all play different positions. And it's hard to really say. I argue with people all the time on Twitter about this. Like, there is no way to say who is the best football player among those three, and there's no way to accurately measure it because they all do so many different things. But they're all really good at different things, and I think they all have good cases for the Heisman. But Mariota's been the most consistent, and he's the most dangerous, I think, in both sides, throwing in, passing the ball, or throwing in, running the ball, I should say. And, I think right now if he goes out and takes care of business and plays really well against Arizona, wins that title, or wins the Pac-12 title and gets in the college football playoff, I'm not sure if there's anything that Melvin Gordon and Amari Cooper can do to catch up to him at this point.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you just brought up, because when you look at the numbers of these three guys, obviously Mariota's got the numbers, and even if you look at his whole body of work in his college career, the only people who probably did a little bit better number-wise were Cam Newton and Tim Tebow. But if you look at Gordon and Cooper, really the only running back, and I'm talking of Heisman Trophy winners, who's had a statistically better season than Melvin Gordon was Barry Sanders. And for Amari Cooper, I know these numbers are skewed because of the way the offenses are now in college football, but he clearly has the best numbers of any Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver. So if you put these guys in three separate years, they probably all three of them had a really good shot of winning, but they're just kind of, in the wrong year together, right?
Yeah, that's what makes this weekend pretty interesting because they've all got, intriguing matchups. I already touched on Oregon going against an Arizona team that already beat them this year, but then you've got Melvin Gordon in Wisconsin looking pretty hot right now going against an Ohio State team that suddenly is without their leader, J.T. Barrett, the quarterback, who stepped in for Braxton Miller. No one knew what he would do, and all he did was turn in a Heisman-worthy, candidacy with his season this year. Just got hurt in their last game, won't be there for the Big Ten title game. So what does that mean for Ohio State? No one really knows right now. And then from the SEC title game perspective, and Amari Cooper, they're going against a Missouri team that a lot of people are sleeping on. I don't know if Missouri wins this game, but I know they do have a good defense. They've got a great defensive front. They've got two defensive ends in Marcus Golden and Shane Ray, who are probably the best duo, one of the best duos in the country at those positions. And if they can do a good job of really putting pressure on Blake Sims, obviously that matters for Amari Cooper. I mean, that's the one thing about Amari Cooper is his position. I mean, what he does, it matters a lot what Blake Sims does because he can't do much unless he catches the ball. So I think it's interesting to look at that from an X's and O's standpoint and see if they can prevent Alabama from getting out on a quick start. For that reason, I think there's really this weekend's intriguing with the race looking forward and what can really happen because there is still a lot that can happen. But just based on what Mariota has done this year consistently and, the numbers he puts up, and not just the numbers, but how efficient and accurate he is. That's kind of missing the whole thing. Sure, he puts up great numbers, but he's only thrown, I think, 2 interceptions this year, and I think he is the nation's leader in pass efficiency right now. And I don't like to get bogged down in stats a lot when it comes to the Heisman race, but I think those showing who he goes against in that Power 5 conference, the Pac-12, it's very deep. I think that tells a lot about him and the kind of person that he is. And he also stays out of trouble, off the field. And I think that maybe doesn't get enough attention too, considering that the stuff that's going on off the field with some past Heisman winners, Manziel, Newton, Jameis Winston, these things have happened, fair or not, that have kind of cast the Heisman in a bad light. This guy isn't doing that, and the Heisman Trophy in their mission statement talks about the word integrity in there,
right.
and whether or not that should matter or not, it's right there in the first sentence. So, all those combined, that's why I think Marcus Mariota right now has got to win it. But with the way this season's gone, there's no telling. I mean, if Melvin Gordon goes out and runs all over Ohio State, things get interesting, and Amari Cooper too, if he goes out and has another 200-yard receiving performance like he did in the Iron Bowl. It could really get interesting there next week as the votes are due next Monday. So, it's fun to kind of see where this will go from here because these are three very good players, but three very different players at the same time.
Yeah, and you touched on the fact that the past few quarterbacks, at least, have had some off-the-field issues. Even if you look at their personalities, Jameis Winston, Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, they have that very electric personality. Marcus Mariota flies under the radar a lot. We're not even really sure what this guy is all about. If I asked my wife a couple years ago who Johnny Football was or who Tim Tebow was or even Jameis Winston, she would know who that is. If I said Marcus Mariota right now, she might not know who I'm talking about, and this might be our East Coast, West Coast bias, but does the fact that he doesn't have that really dynamic personality, good or bad, does that hurt him at all in this? And in terms of, getting his name out there and
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I've actually, I've had people like when things have gone on off the field with Jameis Winston or Johnny Manziel that have gotten the negative headlines. A lot of people say, well, these are, Heisman candidate type players, best in the country. How can they stay out of the headlines? And my answer to that is always, well, then how does Marcus Mariota stay out of the headlines? Because the guy doesn't get in trouble. So obviously it's possible. Obviously it's possible to go out there and just do your job and stay out of trouble off the field. And he seems to do that. Now, obviously, I don't know Marcus Mariota as a person. I don't know what he's like. I just know that he's able to keep the negative headlines out of his, attention. So I think that's a good thing for him. But I don't know. I mean, it's funny because I've seen reports earlier this year that him being kind of quiet and reserved might actually hurt him with NFL executives because maybe he doesn't have enough leadership or research him to be a leader. I'm not sure if I buy that. The guy has obviously, been a leader to a team out there that trusts him to win games, and he's done that. Week in and week out. So I don't know if that really hurts him. I do think it's different, like I alluded to earlier, just in this Heisman race, because we've seen guys with very outgoing personalities know how to get out in the media. But he's not like that. He likes to kind of stay quiet, and I can appreciate that. I mean, I can appreciate a guy that lets his play speak for him, and that's all you need to know. And right now that's working really well.
Yeah, it's weird to think that that this is the kind of day and age that we're in right now, where a guy who's quiet and doesn't get into trouble is almost seen as maybe not necessarily negative, but doesn't help him as much as it has other people. But I agree with you. I appreciate it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air, and I think if he wins it, we'll start to learn a little bit more about this guy, what he's all about, what his personality is about. To listen to past episodes of the Radio Blast, check out our website at theradioblast.com. And be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/radioblastpodcast.